Gentlemen, the board is coming back from a brief recess. The next item on our agenda is a new common victualler license for the Village Diner, 7 County Road, North Falmouth. I'll let the board and the audience know, Mr. Bortz is my neighbor, and if anyone has an objection to me sitting in on this, I will recuse myself. I'll give the public or the board the opportunity for this.
Well, you don't have any financial interest in
No,
this restaurant?
no financial interests.
Do you guys get along?
I think we do pretty well.
That's my question.
Everybody.
Do you get along?
All right. Mr. Bortz, good evening.
Hi, I'm Brad Bortz, and I'm just applying for a common vic license for the Village Diner, formerly Skip's Home Plate in North Falmouth.
Good. Questions from the board?
Similar food? Or what kind of food are you proposing for it?
Well, right now, breakfast and lunch, but I do want to go back to opening at night, too, like when it was Wendell's, sometime in the summertime, because just for financial reasons. That's a tough area there. Well, not an area, but I've been there 30 years ago when Sharon had it, and you know, I know a lot of people down there. The locals will support it if it's open regularly and the same. And I got a lot of positive feedback, you know, for it. And so basically the same, but trying to think outside the box a little bit, you know, doing a few things different and get more business in there.
I make a motion to approve, or is this a public hearing, or is this just a...
No, this is just a common vic license.
Make a motion to approve?
Second?
Okay, motion and a second. Anyone in the public who wishes to comment on this application? Hearing none.
Can I just make one last thing? Are you going to bring back the executive burger? I just
Oh,
wanted to...
Damien, yes,
Okay,
yes.
okay.
All right.
Yeah, that was one of my perennial favorites back when it was
Yeah,
with.
that will be there.
All right, with that, all those in
Now,
favor?
is this for a 24-hour license? I mean, for, I said on the application, I believe with the health department, it was for breakfast and lunch, but can I, just, if I'm approved, go for a 24-hour license? Because I don't know if, you know, wonder if I decide to open like, when it's a snowstorm for the plow drivers.
Mr.
And I
Murphy
see-
can address this. I think
Common
the,
victual license is a
Yeah,
common victual
anytime.
license. There's no hours.
No.
You know, I mean, if you had some noise complaints from neighbors, we would probably bring you in and ask you
But
to
no.
curtail your hours, but besides that,
Yeah.
it's a
You can-
24-hour license.
Oh,
the
okay.
restriction on
That's
hours that you may have heard is with respect to liquor licenses. So as a restaurant, you can be open 24 hours a day. There's no restriction that this board puts on it. Liquor licenses do have hourly restrictions.
Okay, it's good to know.
Okay. Further questions? All right, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposition? It's unanimous. Congratulations.
Thank you. That was easy. Now, do
We
I
try to
go-
make it.
Do I go to the office and,
Yeah, we'll be signing the license, and then you'll be able to pick it up in the selectman's office. Probably give it a couple of days, just so that they can process everything.
with the check?
That would be
Yeah.
a good idea, too.
Okay.
They won't give it to you unless you have the check.
You'll still have a final inspection for the health department and a food service permit that they have to issue also.
Oh, yeah, well, I've been to building and that, and I know I was waiting for this. It's the process. Thank you for your time.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, next item on our agenda. We have a report from the Cape Light Compact. Thank you for your patience. Maybe the folks in the audience might like a copy.
Lights?
And I guess, Phil, you'll have to advance that for me. Thank you. Well, good evening. Thank you very much for having me. My name is Maggie Downey. I am the Assistant County Administrator, and I am also the Administrator of the Cape Light Compact. And with me tonight is Ron Zweig. He is your representative to the Cape Light Compact Governing Board. I also saw, and I see your raincoat, the chairman of the Cape Light Compact, but she must have stepped out momentarily, so hopefully she'll be back. And also is Phil Moffett. Phil is your Falmouth resident. He's also works on the Cape Light Compact's energy efficiency program. So go ahead to the next slide. I am here tonight to give you an overview of what's happened in 2013. I have been meeting with all of the boards of selectmen and town councils on the Cape and the Vineyard. And as part of the presentation, I know this is may be very familiar to you, but I thought, at least for the audience, I would start at the beginning, give an overview of the Cape Light Compact, and then end on what's happened in 2013. So as you can see here, the Cape Light Compact is an intergovernmental organization. We were formed as a result of the 1997 Massachusetts Restructuring Act. It has a representative of each of the 15 towns on the Cape, the 6 towns on the Vineyard, and the 2 counties as well. So we are a 23-member governing body. We were formed as a result of town meeting votes in the spring and fall of 1998, as well as the Barnstable Town Council. We also have an intergovernmental agreement, so we're an intermunicipal agency under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 40. Next. Each town or council appoints your representative. So Ron Zweig is the voice of Falmouth on the Cape Light Compact Governing Board, which is why I'm here tonight on his behalf to give you the update. If there are items that you wish to bring to the Cape Light Compact, the protocol would come from your board member. Comments on our aggregation plan, or comments on the activities of the Cape Light Compact, or questions about programs would all come through your board member. I put up here, this is our 2014 Executive Committee. Joyce Flynn, as I said, who's here in the audience, is the chairman. Joyce is a resident of Yarmouth, member of the Yarmouth Energy Committee. Bob Schofield is the vice chairman. He's resident of Bourne Energy Committee. Peter Kokolas, treasurer, Chatham Energy Committee. There's a theme here. And Barry Worth, secretary, is also on the Harwich Energy Committee. And Peter Cabana is the member at large from Dukes County. What we have, which is a really good mix on the Cape Light Compact, are members who are on their energy committees, so they bring the grassroots local items that are happening on energy issues, and they bubble it up through the Cape Light Compact, which is looking at energy issues across the Cape and the Vineyard. So we have a great cross-cutting makeup of the Cape Light Compact Governing Board, which I think everybody benefits from. We have 3 primary tasks. I'm going to talk a little bit about each of those tasks tonight: power supply, energy efficiency, and consumer advocacy. I also have pictures on the bottom from Falmouth, so I'll stop every once in a while, just bring something to your attention. First, the power supply. Power supply program, the Cape Light Compact. What we do in the power supply program is we issue an RFP and we negotiate the terms and conditions of competitive power supply contracts. Right now, and we do it on 2 major forums. Right now, we have an RFP out for the municipal electric load, so all of the electric accounts for the cities and towns and other public service districts we've gone out to bid, and we will negotiate the terms and conditions just like we have twice before. The current contract for Falmouth and all of the other towns and county ends on the July meter read. So we have an RFP out now, and we, on behalf of the towns, will negotiate those terms and conditions. Our power supply bids are awarded to the vendor offering the best terms and conditions. Price, remember, is only one term and condition. For example, on the municipal RFP, consistency in pricing was a term that they wanted. Doesn't necessarily guarantee that that will always be the lowest and best price, but for management and budgeting purposes, the direction that we received from the towns was we want a fixed 3-year price from the previous 2011 through 2014, which is what we negotiated through an open bid process. Consumers can opt out of the CLC power supply program at any time and at no charge. There's no exit fee for leaving the Cape Light Compact's power supply program. We also have the longest running green power supply program. So for consumers who want to pay a premium and support renewable energy, you can green up and participate in Cape Light Compact Green. Next. Our energy efficiency program, which is really our crown jewel of all the programs that we run, has 3 primary program areas: residential, low income, and commercial and industrial. As a result of the passage of the Green Communities Act in 2008, this is now a statewide plan. We have a 3-year budget. We are in the 2nd year of our second 3-year plan, so 2013 to 2015 is the 3-year energy efficiency plan that we're administering right now on behalf of ratepayers. You can see on the right, one of the biggest projects that we're working on the commercial side is a retrofit of approximately 17,000 LED streetlights across Cape Cod and Martha's Vineyard. And through this program, all of the street lights will be changed from inefficient high-pressure sodium to light-emitting diodes. The estimated savings, Cape and Vineyard wide, is about $802,000 per year, and that's guaranteed because these are warranted for 10 years. So we will be saving both on a combination of lower electric rates and maintenance costs for all of our Cape and Vineyard towns, over $802,000 each year. All customers can participate in the energy efficiency program regardless of who you choose your competitive supply from. Remember, the Cape Light Compact is about, on power supply, is about choice. You don't have to stay with the Cape Light Compact, but we administer the energy efficiency program for all 202,000 electric accounts. Funds are collected each month. We all pay into our electric bill. And the best way to get your return on investment through the energy efficiency program is to participate in the program, and I'll talk a little bit about some of the incentives. I'm just curious, has everybody on the board had an energy audit or participated in the Compact's energy efficiency program? So lots of nods, yes. Which is great. We have some new incentives under the next 3-year plan, which I'll talk to in a minute. We're also working with all of the schools on the Cape and Vineyard through our NEED program, Teaching the Science of Energy. The board, your member Ron and Joyce, made a decision when they were putting together the Cape Light Compact 3-year energy efficiency plan that rather than use our marketing dollars for typical marketing to put banners or to run ads, they took and dedicated a substantial portion of the marketing funds for energy efficiency to use for energy education, training and teaching teachers in our schools to teach the science of energy, which includes all forms of renewables, fossil fuel, as well. It also meets the MCAS standards and the new STEM standards. So there's a great collaboration between Cape Light Compact board members and our teachers. So this is a fast facts. You can see on the right is a snapshot of the work that we did at the Falmouth Ice Arena, where they received over $240,000 in incentives for energy efficiency programs. So fast facts in 2013, so the 11 months, because we're still closing our books, this program is operated on a calendar year. Overall, Falmouth has 24,600 electric accounts, and of those 24,000 accounts, 1,477 participated in the 11 months of 2013 in the program. And those 1,400 accounts reduced their electric bills by over $650,000 each year through participating in various measures. It could be lighting, it could be motors improvements, such as something that would have happened at the Falmouth Ice Arena. But so we, again, direct impact financially in keeping money locally and in the Falmouth community by lowering electric rates by $654,000. And of that, $17,000 were invested in Falmouth Public School, Morris Pond, and East Falmouth School. 15 homes participated in the program and were built to energy efficiency standards. We have a small PV system on Morse Pond, which delivers about $3,000 of savings. And then again, as I stated before, the big savings, and this actually calculates Falmouth's, over $100,000 you will see in lower electric savings when these lights are completed and installed in the upcoming fiscal year. Go ahead. This is one of my favorite slides. Basically what this shows, Cape Light Compact took over the program in 2002. So we started running the energy efficiency programs annually in 2002, and we've been doing it for over 10 years. So during that 10-year time frame, what happened? What happened is we saw a 4% increase in the number of electric accounts on the Cape and Vineyard. But what you're seeing by the yellow line running across the bar graph is you're seeing flat and slightly declining consumption in kilowatt hours, which is a direct correlation, and the data supports energy use as a result of our efficiency programs is having an impact on how we consume electricity on the Cape and Vineyard. Go ahead. Some of our consumer accomplishments. Consumer advocacy is one of the key roles of the Cape Light Compact. It's not often a very visible one because it happens primarily through the Cape Light Compact's intervention and participation at the DPU in various proceedings. Most recently, the Cape Light Compact intervened in an NSTAR case. It's called cost causation, and it was a filing filed by the utility distribution company on how they allocate costs. When the Cape Light Compact reviewed the filing, we disagreed with how costs were being proposed to allocate, and as a result of our intervention, we were able to avoid an immediate $20 million rate increase on residential customers in the NSTAR territory in southeastern Mass. Again, had it not been for us looking at this, this would have been approved. DPU reviewed our arguments and agreed with us, and we avoided that immediate rate increase for residents. We participate in several working groups at the DPU level and advocate, as I just stated. The next two, $111 million and the $5.7 million, are an example of, again, the Cape Light Compact intervening in renewable contracts that were being signed by the distribution company, where the benefits were going to basic service customers, which would be NSTAR customers, but the costs were being spread out amongst the Cape Light Compact customers, where we were getting no benefits. We made the argument that this was not equitable, that we shouldn't be just getting the downside of things. DPU agreed with us, and again, we avoided having these increases buried in our distribution rates. And then, of course, several years ago, with the sale of the Canal Electric Plant. Again, we argued on allocation. Again, very tedious, not very visible, but significant savings when you look at this across all of the ratepayers on the Cape. Next. So what's happened in 2013? Many of you, it's been in the paper, that the Assembly of Delegates at Barnstable County had conducted an inquiry into the activities of the Cape Light Compact. The board took those recommendations as a result of that study very seriously. The study was released in June of 2012, and the board met at their July meeting and immediately began to review and implement some of the recommendations. And the one that was the most obvious for our activities in 2013 is the Cape Light Compact engaged the Barnstable County's auditor. That auditor is the auditor that is hired and reports to the Assembly of Delegates, and asked them to prepare and to guide us through the recommendation of preparing independent financial statements. The Cape Light Compact's funds have been audited since its inception. However, we were included in the county's audit as an agency fund. We never had independent financial statements where you had an income statement and a balance sheet. We were always included in the county's audit. The auditor recommended that we engage them and prepare and agreed upon procedures, specifically because what was at question was the expenditures. There were questions on the expenditure of Cape Light Compact funds. Were funds used inappropriately? Were energy efficiency funds used for the Cape and Vineyard Electric Cooperative, or any activity that would not be consistent with Mass General Law? So the auditor looked at all of the expenditures from 2003 through 2008 to determine the appropriateness of those expenditures, and what was concluded as a result of those that they sampled, that all of the energy efficiency funds that they reviewed were in fact expended appropriately on energy efficiency activities. There was no cross-subsidization with those funds. They also reviewed 81% of the total value of all of the power supply funds, and found only 2 disbursements were inconsistent with what they were authorized to be spent on, and they totaled $59,000. And these 2 disbursements were consistent with what they should have been, but they were coded incorrectly. They were actually energy efficiency funds that got coded to power supply as a result of manual error when entering them in the financial software. We also asked the auditors to review all of our power supply bids, to put to bed any questions that things were not done and bids were not awarded to either the lowest bidder or the vendor offering the most advantageous terms and conditions. The auditor reviewed the bids and concluded exactly that the bids were awarded to both lowest bidder and or best terms and conditions. The agreed upon procedures are on the Cape Light Compact's website, which is available to the public, and you can see the link right there. Next. The auditor also recommended that from 2009 forward, you actually prepare independently audited financial statements. The reason why they didn't, going back to 2003, were 2 reasons. One, according to public records, many of the records that back up independent audited financial statements no longer exist. They're destroyed, consistent with the Massachusetts Public Records Law. So they told the board, and the board moved forward with a 2009, 10, and 11, and then going forward, 2012 is being prepared right now. So as a result of the audits being completed, there were no major findings in the management letter. They had minor process improvements specifically to revise the chart of accounts for the Cape Light Compact. Prior to that, we were using the county's accounts. County and municipal finance don't necessarily align with utility chart of accounts. So the board adopted that process, and in September, we have revised our chart of accounts. In addition, they recommended that we approve and how we expend power supply funds, that everything be done through supplemental budget process, not just board votes, but actually going back to your original operating budget when you increase or agree to participate in something and doing a supplemental budget. So this is very transparent and the public can follow the flow of dollars. The board also heard loud and clear the request from the community for more financial information to be available to the public. The board now puts up and has for the last, I think, 2 years, maybe 3, every month when we meet, you can see our operating budget, you can follow what was spent, what's available, and we do this not only for our operating budget, but for our energy efficiency program as well. So the independently audited financial statements are available on the website, and there's the link if anybody's interested in following that. Also in 2013, the Department of Public Utilities requested that the compact consider revising its aggregation plan to adequately describe programs and remove obsolete references. The Cape Light Compact's aggregation plan is used kind of as a guide to other aggregators. Right now, there are several cities and towns in Massachusetts that are in the process of becoming municipal aggregators, and the DPU used our plan as a reference for approving their plans. So they did ask us to reconsider making revisions. The board immediately undertook this process that started in September, and right now we are in the process of, we have a public comment period which ends February 7th on the proposed revisions to the aggregation plan. So looking ahead, we're now in 2014. As I said, the board will be doing annual independent audited financial statements every year. We will also be included in the Barnstable County audit every year, so we'll have 2 audits. And our energy efficiency program funds are submitted annually to the DPU, and at which we undergo a fully adjudicated process. So the Attorney General looks at the expenditure of funds, Department of Public Utilities looks at the expenditure of funds, and so does the Division of Energy Resources. We'll be conducting a penetration study on the Cape and Vineyard. We've been in this business now for 10 years, so we're going to take a look back to see who's participated in the program, who hasn't, and where are the gaps, so that we can target our next 3-year plan, specifically energy efficiency programs targeted at those customers who have not participated and that are in need of energy efficiency services. I already talked about the municipal RFP supply that's due in this February, and then the revised aggregation plan will be filed with the DPU this spring. So next, just as a contact information, I know I went through this very fast, but I've been happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Questions from the board?
Just wanted to make one comment. You can rest assured that your representative here in Falmouth, Mr. Zweig, gets up every couple of weeks and holds up a sign with all of that contact information, so, at our meetings.
Thank you. He's in, he is having a friendly competition with I think the representative from the town of Eastham, which goes to every selectman meeting and does the same thing. And, think of Falmouth population to Eastham. Eastham has one of the highest percentage of participation as a direct result of Fred getting the word out. Again, the best way, we pay for these programs. You will pay for the program regardless of whether you choose. So it's great to have somebody advocating and getting the word out about what's available to the, businesses and residents in Falmouth.
Further
I guess,
questions from the board?
yeah, I would say, Maggie, where do you think your next effort is going forward in the compact?
Energy, as I have to wait to see what the study and the data shows us for energy efficiency, Pat, to see where we need to focus. We know that we have pockets of what we call hard to reach, hard to serve, and a lot of it is elderly who may not want people in their home to look at their home. So partnering with maybe VNA or other care providers to get an entree into that. So it's kind of reaching out on the energy efficiency side. Small businesses, listened very closely to the whole discussion on how busy you are in the summer. A lot of our businesses are still seasonal, and we have to get to them at the right time to do the infrastructure upgrades so that we're not interfering with their businesses. So again, it's going to be targeting, finding out where our niches in each of the communities and reaching out to serve them.
You know, just a comment, several months ago, I had a very large businessman in town contact me and say that his company had just bought a restaurant in another town on the Cape, and that he wanted to have an energy audit done of the building because he knew he had to make renovations, but he wanted to do them in an energy efficient way. And he said, how do I do that? And I said, well, you contact the Cape Light Compact. He said, I don't know, would you do that? And I said, oh yeah, I'll do it. So I contacted Wayne, no, not Wayne.
Nicole Price or Meredith
Yes,
Miller?
and I said, this is a person who really wants to do this. They put him right on the list and got out there, and all the renovations were made in a very energy efficient way. I
Good,
thought
that's
that
good to
was
hear.
pretty good. So I say that so that other business owners in town or people who are thinking of buying another business, if they are thinking about doing that, the Cape Light Compact is an option that will help them take a look at what their energy supply is and what they can do to improve it.
Other questions from the board? From the audience? Mr. Cool?
Oh, good.
Thank you for this opportunity. Let me begin by saying that last summer I took advantage of the home audit and the suggestions for short money, capitalized on the suggestions, and so far I turn on my heat November 1st every year.
Brave man.
And that being said, in comparison to only last year, I have saved nearly 17% from the previous year. So through you, Mr. Chairman, I have a few questions. You weren't here when I addressed the board before, and knowing well about our wind turbine situation and bringing up within the context of the DPU wind energy siting guidance investigation that's going on. I saw up there on the slideshow, Compact staff participates in DPU work groups and proceedings. Would that include this investigation? And if so, given Falmouth's circumstance, how would the Compact Light represent Falmouth?
So, yes, we do intervene in DPU proceedings. The discussion, how that would work, I know public comment closed, they were due December 6th, so I don't know where, I think I know their hearing was canceled and they're going to release guidelines, so I'm not sure if there's more comment period option. But the process would be for the board to ask your representative to bring it up at the March meeting, because the board would have to agree that this was an endeavor that they wished to participate in and submit comments on. So traditionally, we identify what Cape Light Compact is working on at the DPU level. So if the town of Falmouth would like the Cape Light Compact to participate in this, or then your board member, Ron, would be the representative to bring it to, and then the board would vote this issue. The Cape Light Compact's board is a one town, one person vote unless it has a financial impact on the members, and it becomes a weighted vote. So that would be the process to bring it to the board.
Just as a point of clarification, she brought up, I believe, the canceled oral testimony hearing is now scheduled for February 6th at the Cape Cod Community College. And I believe the written comments are still open. They extended that, and I think that was the 28th of February. Just for the board's information.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Joyce Flynn here from the Compact Board. I just wanted to take this opportunity to say how proud I am to work with the staff on the Compact. And since I saw two hands on the board that didn't go up with a yes for energy audits, I'd like to say that I just happen to have some pamphlets about my person, if anyone here or in the audience is interested. And I really wanted to call your attention to the mass heat loan availability. My spouse and I took advantage of this last year. It's a 0% interest loan for highly energy efficient improvements. It goes up to $22,000 and up to 7 years. This is residential customers only. I'm afraid this doesn't help with small business issues, but it's a wonderful program, and a lot of people in my town took advantage of it last year. And what the Compact does is buy down the interest rate, and there's no better way to try to keep people warm this winter than to make the improvements that you can with this kind of a benefit. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right. Thank you, Ms. Downey. The next item on our agenda, we have a committee interview, Conservation Commission. Mr. Robbins.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank
My
you
name
for
is
coming.
Russell Robbins. I have applied for the alternate's position on the Conservation Commission. I was born and raised in Falmouth. Lived here pretty much all my life, with the exception of about 4 years in the 90s. I was down in Florida. The grass is always green around the other side, as they say. But I've lived and worked here. I have a real interest in conservation, in protecting our resources, ponds, estuaries, our beaches, the natural open spaces we have and such. And if there's any questions I can ask, I'd be more than happy to.
Okay. Any questions from the board?
Have you had a chance to make it to any of their meetings yet?
Yes, I've been to 4.
And what's your reaction to that committee?
I think the committee's pretty good. I think it's
Besides the
very-
chairman, we won't talk about the chairman tonight.
Another time. I think one of the important things is to be fair and consistent, and I think I've seen that 4 times. I've followed it for a couple of years on TV too, Channel 15 and such. So.
Any other questions from the board?
Just, what are your thoughts on trying to find a reason or a way for people to do projects versus just saying no?
Well, I'm not a no person. I'm more of a maybe person. And again, if you work with us, or we work with the committee, maybe you don't get everything you want, but shrinking it down, maybe fitting it in, I'm all for that.
Okay. Thank you.
I do have one question. Have you ever served on a jury before?
Yes, I have.
Was it through the full trial process? And
It was a
into-
murder trial, yes.
So into the deliberation then?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And what were your thoughts about that?
It was a very interesting process. There was this was back in probably in the 80s, late 80s, and there was different thoughts, and we all kind of had to work together to come, because I'm try to explain this. There was different degrees. There was first degree, obviously, but there was premeditation or there was atrocity.
Okay.
So some people thought atrocity, some people thought premeditation, some people wanted to drop it down. We kind of came to a consensus, and we delivered a verdict of guilty on first degree.
So,
By atrocity, not premeditation.
okay.
So it was interesting because, Judge Dolan said that premeditation could be a minute before the act happened. So that was quite an experience.
I asked the question because I once served on a jury myself. Nothing as dramatic as a murder, but it gives you, I think, a little bit of a feel for the process of having to dig through the facts and come to a decision with a group of individuals who may not always agree to begin with. And obviously, this is one of the aspects of the commission, is that it is a quasi-judicial body, and that you do have to come to a decision based on the facts presented to you, so.
That's a good point, and it's a good way of looking at it, because that's what we found with the jury. I mean, going through all the evidence, and it was a process.
And it's good experience.
It is, very good experience.
I don't really have a question, but I wanted to say thank you for clearing up any issue or potential conflict you might have had because you're a town employee, and how that it may or may not interface with your being appointed to the Conservation Commission. And I thought it was very interesting that the Ethics Commission pointed out that not only could you do both, but if you were out in the field as a plumbing inspector and you saw something that was related to conservation, you could actually move that forward to the appropriate people. I thought that was really very good. I thought that was a very good decision of the Ethics Commission.
Yeah,
And
it
thank you
was
for doing
interesting.
all that in advance.
No problem. That was Mr. Duffy.
That was, Mr. Yeah.
Yeah, because I had talked to, before I even applied, I had talked to Mr. Gore, you know, because I wanted to get his opinion, you know.
Right.
He's my direct supervisor. And he said, well, why don't you talk to Mr. Duffy? I don't have a problem with it. And
Yeah.
that's kind of where it went.
Yeah, well, it was very
You know.
good that it was all done in advance. Thank you
Yeah.
for doing that.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
And to Ms. Flynn's point, we do have the opinions from both Mr. Duffy and the State Ethics Commission, thank you. And there is no concern or issue with you serving on it as a member of the commission, so. Any further questions from the board?
Make a motion to put Mr. Robbins' name into nomination?
Second?
A motion and a second to put the name in nomination.
This is for the alternate position expiring June 30th, 2016, is that correct?
At this point, we're just putting it in nomination.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
So, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? It's unanimous. All right. Names in nomination. There's only one name, so I'll just call for the vote. All those in favor of, and this is the term, as you noted.
There are two expiring on the 16th and one on the 14th, and we want to fill it for the longer term, correct?
Yeah.
Right.
This is to fill an expired term, or an unexpired term, ending on June 30, 2016.
So move.
Okay, second?
Motion and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition?
Thank
Thank
you
you
very
and
much.
congratulations.
Thank
Good
you.
evening.
All right, next item on our agenda, and thank you for waiting, we have the EDIC, update status on the Memorandum of Understanding for the landfill reuse study.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, member of the board. I'm Michael Galasso. I'm the chairman of the EDIC, and other members of the EDIC present tonight is Jim Fox and your representative, Selectman Murphy. In June of 2012, the EDIC and the town signed a memorandum of understanding allowing the EDIC to study the potential redevelopment and potential long-term lease of the former landfill for potential economic development. Shortly after signing the lease, the EDIC formed a subcommittee responsible for implementing the terms and condition of the memorandum of understanding. And the board is the area that we are discussing this evening. In the fall of 2012, the subcommittee had a number of meetings where members of the town's Agricultural and Energy Committee attended. And in the spring of 2013, we issued a request for proposal for a consultant to assist us in studying the potential for redeveloping the landfill and conducting a economic analysis of selected reuses. We interviewed respondents to the RFP and selected the best respondent and negotiated a contract with them. That firm that we selected is Weston & Sampson, and the president and CEO is here this evening. We'll talk to you briefly. Because of their experience, Weston & Sampson was selected because of their experience in working both in other towns for landfill reuse and their experience with the Falmouth landfill. We asked the consultants to do an early preliminary analysis of reusing the landfill to generate renewable energy and using solar. Mike, if you can show that next slide. How much energy could be generated, at what cost and benefits to the town and the EDIC. That analysis is still ongoing, but preliminary results are that it could generate up to 5.3 megawatts. In January, we invited members of all the town committees and boards to a workshop to solicit input into potential uses for the landfill and receive some good suggestions. We are still soliciting input until the end of the month. The consultant, Mike, will now go over some of the other background and potential uses for the landfill, and then I'm available for any questions that you may have.
That's just some of our experience. So the project goals were to identify the highest and best economic use of the landfill.
So, I'm sorry, could you identify yourself for the record, please?
Sure. Mike Scipione,
Thank you.
I can try. Weston and Sampson. And this is a landfill that I worked with the town about 15 years ago to cap, and when we capped it, we set it up so that it could be used for post-closure use down the road if the town had that desire. Next slide, please, Michael. The scope of work included essentially 7 tasks with an early action item that Michael mentioned. To date, we've done the discovery work on the site, we've done a site visit and area inventory, and we've held the planning meeting a couple of weeks ago. Still left to do is to develop the opportunities and constraint matrix, complete the cost-benefit economic model, do the total of the site plan analysis, and then finalize a report. So those steps are still yet to do. Just a couple of facts about the landfill over on Thomas Landers Road. The landfill is about 55 acres of area, and that's the total land area. Of that, about 46 acres are filled with material and capped. The landfill was closed in 2000. Approximately 5 acres, most of that is capped, is used for the waste management facility. The areas that are not capped do not have trash under them or any disposal. Just some of the existing conditions around it. You have the landfill, you have the waste management facility shown in green. You've got industrial land to the west of the facility, sand and gravel operations, Cape Cod aggregate, compost operations, and a little bit of residential in the area. Next slide, please. The zoning, the landfill property itself is zoned for public use. To the east, you have some agricultural land, and you have some light industrial land. Some of the things that need to be considered as we're evaluating the site for use is permitting and design considerations. Under the permitting, some of the zoning districts, and since it's a public use, these are some of the items that are allowed: residential and community servicing, agricultural, commercial, nonprofits, campgrounds, boat storage, wind energy, and accessory uses by zoning. By permitting and design, it's also under the jurisdiction of DEP because the entire site is site assigned as a solid waste facility. What the Bureau of Solid Waste, DEP, would be concerned with was public health and safety and protection of the cap. Make sure, because you have capped it. It will require a post-closure use permit if you move forward with any post-closure use through DEP, and it may require a risk assessment. That's a question mark because a risk assessment was done when there was closure of the waste management facility. So you have done some risk assessment work on the site already. Back a number of years ago, though. Some of the items that you need to be concerned about is landfill gas. That's from a public health standpoint. Right now, you have a venting system that allows for the gas to be vented to the atmosphere and prevents gas from migrating off-site. And that has to continue to happen through any post-closure use. Next slide, please. So acceptable uses that have been reviewed to date: boat storage. That's about the only one that really seems feasible under your current zoning. And then there are several others that have been discussed and looked at, industrial and/or contractor yards, as well as solar. And those items are not currently allowed under the current zoning of the site. However, they're consistent with the surrounding area, and likely they would have to go through a town meeting process, but they're at least consistent. And then, as Michael mentioned, we had a public meeting several weeks ago and received lots of good input. It was a very good meeting. Folks talked about history of the site a lot, and also talked a lot about some ideas that they would have for the site, or thought that the town should consider, and the EDIC should consider. Next slide. And these are just some of the items, or the majority of the items that came up, and they're not really in any order, except for the order that they might have been raised in. Several of them were talked about by more than one individual. You had steamship parking that was talked about from the past. They also talked that had been taken care of in the area since then. Open space plan, or a dog park. Renewable energy. There was quite a bit of talk about solar at the site at the meeting. There was a number of folks that had that interest and showed up at the meeting. Contractors' yards was brought up, and that had been brought up in the past for this site, I recall. Agricultural uses, there were a number of folks from the Agricultural Committee that brought up potential uses as agricultural. Cyclocross, which was a new one for me, but I learned something about it. It sounded kind of interesting. Disc golf around the periphery, maybe. And then a few folks brought up that maybe it's appropriate to think about multiple uses at the site, maybe not just one use at the site. And the comment period hasn't closed. There's still several days left till the end of this week, and the EDIC will accept written comments and is still waiting to hear on those, so that we can compile them and pull together the report. And then the schedule going forward, the comment period will end this week, and then by February 7th, the draft solar feasibility study, which was the early action item, will be completed and submitted to EDIC. And then by April, we plan to issue a draft report, and then hopefully finalize it by May, a month later. So that's the current schedule.
Questions from the board?
Well, not so much questions, more comments. It was my understanding at the time that the landfill was capped, that the town engineer somehow managed to set up the methane gas, what do you call it?
Vents.
What?
Vents.
That it could be redirected if in fact that there were some reuse that was decided upon, that the methane gas could be redirected easily to some other place? Is that your understanding?
Well, it's a passive system, and when it was installed, when it was designed and installed, there are a number of vents that are down into the landfill to relieve the gas pressure and to get them out to the atmosphere. Those are put together, manifolded, piped together, so that down the line, if you decide to have post-closure use, several of those could be retrofitted relatively easy, so that you wouldn't have so many penetrations sticking up into the air.
Okay.
So yes,
So that was a positive thing.
that was a positive, definitely a positive.
The other thing I remember from the closure, or the capping way back, was that one of the reuses might be for ball fields, because at the time, the town had a huge need for other ball fields. But it would seem to me that since that time, with all of the work the 300 committee has done and the town has done in the rec department, that we may or may not have that same urgent need for ball fields that we had then. Is that, but that would probably come through in the public comments, I would think.
I don't.
Or have you heard it?
Yeah, I didn't. I
No?
don't recall hearing a lot about ball fields up there during the public hearing period of time. The site is, it would take a significant amount of fill to flatten it off or terrace it off to do that. And if you were going to put ball fields out, I would suggest you would need to do additional risk assessment work also up there, if you're going to put kids up there.
Anyone else?
I think it might be important for Mike to enlighten the board of how much the EDIC is spending on this project. You did mention they issued an RFP, but this is EDIC money that's trying to develop this plan for the town, so, you know.
Yeah, that's correct, Selectman Murphy. We've allocated close to $50,000 for the study to be conducted. And, you know, one of the prime reasons the EDIC got involved in this project is that it's costing the town somewhere between $80,000 and $100,000 a year right now for monitoring the cap and additional work that has to go out there. And our goal was to turn what is a negative for the town into a positive by looking at things that will actually generate some revenue for the town and for the EDIC too.
I guess my last question would be, say it turns out to be a solar array that's determined. Now, would the EDIC then turn that over to the town, or would the EDIC actually develop it and then turn it over to the town, or would the EDIC manage it?
Well, I think what we would like to do and what the Memorandum of Understanding sort of proposes is that we would enter into negotiations with the town for hopefully some form of a long-term lease on the landfill where we'd be sharing revenue that the landfill would generate with the town. And that the EDIC would look at being the developer, like we've developed the tech park, and having the solar or whatever it is that we elect to do developed, and then sharing the revenue with the town that comes from it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chairman. I just wanted to note that it was my pleasure to attend the recent public meeting that was held by the EDIC at the chamber offices, and I just want to compliment Chairman Galasso and the EDIC and the consultant as well. I was very impressed with what was presented as reflected here this evening, and appreciate the EDIC's leadership in stepping out to explore possibilities here for quality adaptive reuse to benefit taxpayers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions from the audience?
I just have one other question. I was at the Mass Municipal meeting this past weekend, and I attended a workshop on Chapter 23L of the general laws, which is a fairly new general law. Massachusetts has been one of the last states to actually propose a law like this. It's pretty commonplace in the rest of the country. And believe me, I am no expert on it, and I'm just kind of talking off the top of my head on it. But the whole idea is that it's an economic development program, in a sense, something that the state has created where a town, in developing a project that has economic value to the community, the project could be done by a developer, and the developer would actually pay the cost of it. The work could be done absent the prevailing wage, that would not apply. And also, when the developer gets paid for it somehow through taxes, the property taxes. But in the end, the project is turned over to the town. Now, that's just a snapshot, and believe me, you probably have a million questions, because I do too. But I would suggest that in something like this, you might want to look at that and see whether or not there's any relevance of that general law to the project that you're doing. The key is, in the end, the project has to be turned over and become a public project. It can't be a private project. But it's something to think about in terms of the town not having to use its own resources to pay for it in the first place. I mean, they're doing this in many different places where the town doesn't spend the money to build it, but the town gets it in the end.
Yeah.
But then somehow the contractor is paid back through the taxes. So, but check Chapter 23L, because it has lots of pieces to it that sound really interesting to me.
We will do that, and as part of our contract with a consultant, we'll be looking at all potential sources to finance whatever it is that we end up doing on the landfill.
All right.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
Yeah, bye, Mike.
Mr. Chairman, can I bring up, before we move on? We took no action on one item tonight because, you know, and it still could be part of the agenda, and that was the Arts and Crafts Festival on Main Street. We took no action because of a pending thing between the farmer's market and their location. I think it would be appropriate for us to vote that this evening, to be able to move forward with that, so that if we're going to look at this issue on a basis, that we look at the broad issue again back on Main Street. You yourself were the one who said they can't do for one, but we can't do for another, so.
True that.
I'd just like to say that we're gonna move that. I think we need to go back and readjust our thinking on that. We took no action, so it wouldn't be reversible with the board, so.
Any objections from the board? Do we want to bring that back up? And
I think so, yeah, because I think they would probably like to have a decision. Which one is it? The
It's the,
G?
G.
Oh, yes,
So
the
yeah.
Arts and Crafts Festival.
So can I make a motion that we reconsider and consider taking a
Well,
vote? Just-
no
We
need
have-
to take a motion to reconsider. We'll,
Motion to approve.
yeah,
Okay, I'll second that motion.
okay, motion to approve, second. Any discussion?
I would still prefer to Kathleen Bates, so I will not be voting in support of having that on Main Street. I think it's just too much of a disruption to that street.
And just in one discussion on it, in the application, they have talked that at this late date, they wanted to be able to look at that next year, and they
Right.
would come up with an alternative next year. Whether the date would be in the month of June, or meaning it would be in the months of July and August, according to the
Right.
board's policy.
Okay.
All right, motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries 3-1 with Mr. Jones dissenting. Excuse me. All right. So and that's actually already been signed. So, next item on the agenda. Vote intent to lay out Elizabeth Jean Drive and refer to the planning board.
Can I just make the motion that we refer this to the planning board and vote that we intend to lay it out? I know it has to go to town meeting also, after it goes to us and after it goes to, so my motion is the Board of Selectmen does intend to lay out Elizabeth Jean Drive as a public way and to refer this plan to the planning board for its review. That's my motion.
I'll second it, and I'll also make a comment. I drove there the other day just to see what, of course, it was all covered with snow, so I couldn't very well see the road, but I could see some of the issues that they mentioned regarding encroachments. And, but it's a nice street, you know, it winds around, and there's a turnaround at the end. But I have no idea what the road looks like, but I certainly support it.
Okay. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? It's unanimous.
I did the finance motion.
Okay. Yeah, we don't need to sign that, we have the motion. All right, next item on our agenda is vote articles and execute the warrant. We'll go page by page through this, as we usually do. Page 1, we have Articles 1 through 6.
Move Articles 1 through 6.
A motion
Second.
to add Articles 1 through 6 to the warrant.
Second?
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay, unanimous. All right, page 2 is Article 7.
Move we add Article 7 to the warrant.
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second to add Article 2, or excuse me, add Article 7 on page 2 to the warrant. Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposition? It's unanimous. Page 3 is Article 8.
Move we add Article 8 to the warrant.
Second.
Motion and a second to add Article 8 to the warrant. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? It's unanimous.
On Article 9, I just had one question, maybe this is for the town manager. We have a piece of paper later on, that talks about a different Article 9. I just want to make sure that we're not having confusion, and it's the one that's not being recommended.
Correct.
Is-
This is the one that's intended to be included in, later on, as you note, Mr. Vice Chairman, I'm not recommending what had at that time been listed as an Article 9, but that was just for housekeeping purposes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
So should we be,
So I would move adding Articles 9, 10, 11, and 12.
I would like to just have a little conversation on Article 12.
Okay.
Can we just go 9, 10, and 11?
Sure.
And then,
Motion then for Article 9, 10, and 11?
Yes, as a.
Do we have a
motion.
second?
second.
Motion and a second for Articles, adding Articles 9, 10, and 11 to the warrant. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition?
So I guess,
Unanimous. Article 12.
well, my Article 12 is, I think it's a really great idea, but I hadn't seen it before. And I just wondered if you could just mention exactly what it is.
Certainly, happy to. Our Personnel Director, Denise Coleman, had made the suggestion that, and we had discussed it internally for some time, about encouraging technical, administrative, and management, or TAM employees, as the board is familiar, making a modest sum available to encourage continuing education and reimbursement for tuition. As a result, this would be for a coursework, of course, that would be appropriate to one's duties and responsibilities. As I think you're I'm sure, given your experience in personnel, Selectman Flynn, you're familiar with the fact that this is done from time to time in different communities and can be a wonderful support for and encouragement for employees to continue to keep their skills set up and to expand their education and training. So it is done in furtherance of that. No dollars have been attached to that. That would be discussed with Finance Committee and be part of the motion if town meeting were to consider it.
Okay. I would move Article 12.
Second?
Okay, motion is second to add Article 12 to the warrant. Any discussion on the motion? Or I should say further discussion. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposition? Unanimous.
I would move adding Articles 13 to 24 to the warrant.
I have questions about those, too.
Okay.
Okay.
Article 21, I'm not sure what that is. To vote to appropriate such
that's the budget.
sums of money to defray the expenses for 2015?
Is it that's the operating budget? Isn't that just all it was?
Oh, is that the operating budget then?
Yes,
is
that's the
that-
operating
Article
budget,
21.
pardon me. Yes.
Oh, that's the
That's our annual
budget.
operating
Yeah.
budget.
Oh, okay.
To defray the town's operating expenses for fiscal
Okay.
year 2015, correct?
Well, I would prefer if you would amend your motion to include Articles 13 to 21, and then take Articles, and 24, and then take Articles 22 and 23 separately.
I would move adding Articles 13 to 21.
Well, let's just do this in order, so let's just do
Okay.
13 to 21, and then we can address the other articles.
Yep.
So,
Second?
motion for Articles 13 to 21 to add them to the warrant. We have a second. Any discussion on the motion?
Yes, I'm opposed to adding Articles
Well,
20.
let's vote the motion first, and then we can
Okay.
talk about, because we're going 13 to 21 first.
Okay.
Okay. Any discussion on Articles 13 to 21? All those in favor?
Aye.
No,
Okay. Motion carries.
but it's not that I don't oppose 13 through 20 and Article 24, but I don't
Well,
approve.
we're just voting Articles 13 through 21, but the motion carries. So you had
Oh,
questions about
Articles
Article... 13
13 to 21.
Yes.
That's where you stopped.
Right.
Okay.
Sorry.
Then I will vote, sorry about that. All right.
All right, Article 22, you have a question about that.
No, I don't have a question. I just don't, I'm just going to, I'd like to have a separate vote on 22 and 23.
Okay. Just so you know, 23 is a petitioner's article, so it would have to go on the warrant regardless of whatever discussion we have.
That's fine.
Okay.
That's correct. Can I just ask a question? If we have a petitioner's article that is the same as the article itself, why would we have two articles?
Well, I asked Mr. Suso to add Article 22, I asked him to add a placeholder. I wasn't aware that there would necessarily be an Article 23, but obviously there is. This is an article, you all may remember, we had a town meeting vote in 2008 asking the board to conduct a review of the project when the project was completed. There was actually an article on the warrant in 2012, in the spring of 2012, but it was voted indefinite postponement and no action was taken at the time. I haven't looked at the minutes, but I believe it had to do something with the availability of funds at that time. Last year, there was again a placeholder article here. Unfortunately, at the time, the board was split on a 2-2 vote in adding that to the warrant. I was out, my father had passed away, and so I asked Mr. Suso to again put this on here. While I would agree the two articles are pretty much identical, I think it's incumbent upon the board to take a leadership position in this role. The town meeting did ask that the board conduct the review. It would be under the auspices of the board. We could certainly take the advice of town meeting if they chose to follow the petitioner's article and we didn't have our own article here. But again, I think it's incumbent upon the board to take a leadership role and to address this issue once and for all.
Can I just make a comment on that? I could understand but in the past, the board took never made a positive motion for petitioners' articles, and we changed that policy over the last several years. So.
It's now actually in the charter that we have to make a recommendation.
Right,
on
right.
petitioners'
So
articles.
now we have two separate articles, whether it's by a petitioner or not. The board is gonna have to make a recommendation on article number 23, either way. So I think it's very confusing that we put another article on from the board when the board could make a recommendation on Article 23.
I would prefer, if we're gonna take a leadership role, it would be to, if this is what we chose to do, to support the petitioner's article and not have a separate article that says the same thing.
I tend to agree with that.
I
That's
would
what
also say Article 22 has no funding, also. I mean, there's no
Well, at this
funding.
point, there's no funding identified, but
Well,
certainly a motion could be made on the floor
But
to identify.
then it would have to come out of free cash, you know, so I
Well,
mean, there's no funding that goes with the article.
Typically, funding is rarely mentioned in an article. The petitioner probably shouldn't have put it
No, I'm
mentioned in
talking
the
about 22.
recommendation.
No, I'm talking about our article.
Correct.
Usually, if we put an article, we provide funding for the article. I'm talking about Article 22. And there is no funding.
But it would be in the recommendations,
It would be.
not in the.
If you look at the other
article
articles that we've put
Okay.
on the warrant this
It's-
evening that are on our requests, as
It's a-
Mr. Murphy notes, there's no funding identified for those articles at this time.
But just as a placeholder, it wouldn't be.
Well,
So, you know.
I'll make a motion to put Article 22 on the warrant. I think petitioner's article aside, I think the board should take the leadership role, and I don't think we should be waiting for petitioners to put these articles forth.
I don't think we're
Well-
waiting, it's here.
I don't think we're waiting, it's here.
Let me point out, however, that it's been there in years past, and the board has not acted on it. I think it's about time we act on it, so, rather than taking a back seat to the petitioner's article, let's move this forward. There's a motion on the floor, does anyone want to second it?
I'll second it for the vote.
Well, I would say the reason I don't support it is because I think that there has been sufficient review of the expenses related to the high school, and I think it's time to move on. And I think spending another $25,000 or $30,000 to take a look at something that's already been vetted by the school building authority, that I don't think it's really necessary. And besides, you know, I just don't agree with it.
But I think that's the discussion for the recommendation, as opposed to.
No,
whether
it comes to putting it on the warrant.
But it's already on the
This
warrant.
is no, it isn't.
Article 23 has to be on the warrant.
We have to
23,
vote
that's
to
right.
put it
Right.
on the warrant.
Not if it's a petitioner's article,
I'm talking about Article
We're
22, the
focusing on
Board of
Article 22 right
Selectmen
now.
article.
And I understand where Ms. Flynn is coming from, and
I-
based on what
Yeah,
you
I mean,
believe,
I've
you don't
opposed
think it
it
needs to
all,
be there.
every year, so it's nothing new.
I would like to point out that the vetting that you mentioned, there was an audit done. But the only issue with an audit is that an audit, they look at the books and they basically ask the question of themselves, here, we bought a widget. Did we paid $5 for the widget? The audit says, yes, you paid $5 for the widget, and you're exactly correct. What this review would do would be to look at it and say, well, did we even need to buy the widget in the first place? That's one of the questions that would be asked and answered. We can talk about a review of the project being done by the State Building Authority, and indeed there was an audit done, but that only looks to see whether the numbers match. It doesn't actually answer the question as to whether or not we should have paid for something in the first place. It doesn't answer the questions about how we got into the situation in the first place, or ultimately where the process broke down. And I know obviously there's been some fingers pointed in the past, and that's obviously what this is intended to address, is to eliminate the finger pointing and actually get down to what happened and provide some solid answers.
You know, and we're gonna debate that under Article 23, but the bottom line is democracy held through, and democracy was town meeting voted to do it. I've saved the article, I wanted to build a new high school, not remodel the old high school. But democracy dictated that we were gonna remodel that high school. So, I mean, the bottom line is, it was town meeting that made that decision, not any one individual. Maybe some people convinced town meeting, but, you know, just like we'll be debating Article 23. You know, we've all had hindsight. Hindsight's a great issue, great thing. Boy, if we could all have hindsight and go to the racetrack, we'd all be pretty good. But we can't, so let's just move on.
Okay. Well, there's a motion, there's a second. So all those in favor of adding Article 22 to the warrant? Aye. In opposition?
Aye.
Okay, the motion does not carry.
And we're adding Articles 23 and 24 to the warrant?
Second.
Motion and a second to add Articles 23 and 24 to the warrant. Any discussion on the motion?
Well, I oppose Article 23, but I don't oppose Article 24, so I'll have to vote no, since the motion is on both of the articles.
I mean,
You can't.
don't we have to accept petitioners' articles?
Petitions article.
Yeah, we can't not vote an article, a petitioner's article on the warrant.
To go on the
I
warrant?
am, so,
Okay.
that's just how
All
it
right.
is.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition?
No.
Okay, motion carries. Ms. Flynn dissenting. Page 6, Articles 25 through 31.
I'll leave the motion to Ms. Flynn to make sure I'm not.
Somebody make a motion, please.
I'll make a motion to put 25 through 31 on the warrant.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second to add Articles 25 to 31. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Unanimous. Okay, and lastly, a motion, please, to execute the warrant.
I move that we execute the warrant.
Second?
A motion to execute the warrant. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposition? Unanimous.
Pardon me, Mr. Chairman, I should note there is one that was
Article
raised
9.
that I did not bring forward to recommend, and that is on the back of page 7 of the warrant.
Article
Okay.
9, it's Article 9.
That was an item that was brought forward initially
Okay.
by the school department for replacement windows at Lawrence School. And subsequent to that, they've been exploring an MSBA school building process as opposed to pursuing this capital expense at this time.
Okay.
So this is not needed. However, in the meeting on February 10th, you'll be considering approval of what's called a statement of intent to allow the school department to apply for design and ultimately construction funds through the MSBA program. But as a result, this will not be needed, so I just wanted to explain that.
Would that, I'm curious, does that program require town meeting approval, or is it simply just the board? And is it like a grant, or?
It is a grant, but my understanding is ultimately town meeting has to weigh in as well prior to the final step anyway.
All right.
So that'll be a special town meeting article?
I'm sorry?
That'll be a special town meeting article.
Well,
It may not be this year.
this will not require
or this
special town meeting action, because the only article that's going to come forward, there are design funds already set aside in the annual budget for Lawrence School windows, but that funding may need to be supplemented slightly in the through the special town meeting in the FY14 budget, if we are successful with this statement of intent.
Okay.
So it has a couple of hurdles there, but it would start next week, your next meeting.
If I might, yes, it will need a town meeting vote because the MSBA is not going to pay 100%. It would be a percentage. It's simply like building a school. You would still have, the town would have additional funds that it would be paying.
Right.
So, yes.
Partial grant,
Right.
if we're successful.
A percentage.
All right, next item on the agenda, we have the committee handbook. We have the revised version here.
I must say, I did a little, what do I want to say, rewording in some sentences, but I only did it up through page 6. I did not touch Appendix A or anything that follows. I didn't touch the online posting policy, we've already done that. I didn't touch any of the backup to the committee handbook.
I would like the board to consider, I don't know if you received my email, I had suggested a change to
No,
the section on resignations.
I took it out. Oh, resignations.
Section F, it actually falls on page 4 because of the way the page break comes in. The top of page 4 is the paragraph on resignations. It says resignations must be submitted in writing to the committee chairman with copies to the town clerk and the board of selectmen. what I would like to see this, how I'd like to see this worded is that resignations must be submitted in writing or in person to the Board of Selectmen. And the reason why is of course, we just went through this process of appointing our new representative to the Board of Governors for the Steamship Authority, and there was some question for a while there as to whether or not Mr. Marshall had in fact resigned. Well, he did, obviously, but the resignation, he had sent it via email to me. Unfortunately, he misspelled my name. And
so it didn't get through.
if you're familiar with email systems, if you misspell the email address, and in this case, my name was part of the address, it doesn't get delivered. And so it took a couple of months before we sorted out what happened to his resignation. I think in order to avoid that sort of situation in the future, one, it should be in writing or delivered in person, so via U.S. mail or delivered in person, as opposed to sent via email, so we can avoid that. And of course, you all have seen, and I don't think the public realizes, but we've had some issues with the town's email server over the past year, and that's another one of those things where an important document such as this we should have some means of assuring that it's going to be delivered to the board. The other point that I'd like to make is that we are the appointing authority. And in public life, when we decide to resign from a job, we hand our resignation to our supervisor. We don't hand it to our coworkers and ask them to hand it to our boss. So I'd like this to read that it be submitted in writing or in person to the Board of Selectmen. And then that way it's not going to...
I would encourage that we just change switch chairman of the board to committee chairman, just change those places. I don't think it should be in person, because I
don't
read that
either.
as being, hey, I just resigned.
Hey, guess what, I'm resigning.
Understood,
It
okay.
needs
Yeah.
to be in writing, so it needs
Yeah,
to be in
I
writing.
agree, to the Board of Selectmen is fine, and eliminate committee chairman and town clerk. I'm
Well, I
okay
would
with
say
that.
with copies to the town clerk
Yeah.
and to the committee chairman, because then,
To the Board of
if for
Selectmen.
some reason their email goes astray to us, other people have gotten it.
Well, I'd rather it not be via email, and maybe we
Oh,
need to
right.
say
Submit
that
it
in
in
here, in
writing.
writing, and say
To-
email or not via email, or...
In writing.
In writing usually
delivered
means you
to-
write a letter.
Delivered to the Board of Selectmen's
Yes, in writing,
office.
in writing delivered to the Board of
And
Selectmen.
delivered.
Yeah, delivered.
Must be,
It
it must
could
be
be
in
In writing and
And
delivered to the Board
to
of
the Board of
Selectmen.
Selectmen.
That's
Board
good.
of Selectmen with copies
Right.
to,
the committee chairman and the town clerk.
okay,
That's good. Okay,
okay, thank you very much.
I'll do that. That's easy since I already have it in my computer.
Did we not want to have a removal section, or we decided we were going to wait on that until?
Very difficult. I mean, you can't really predict, and I just
thought
didn't.
Frank was working on that for us.
Well, he hasn't. I didn't get anything from
Yeah,
him.
he's,
Oh, okay.
that's
He
still,
is
that's still
working
in
on it?
progress.
Okay.
Oh,
and,
it's still in progress, okay.
His suggestion was if the board would be agreeable, would want to go ahead and adopt this with
And then-
that section to be added with your
At a
approval
later time.
at a later date.
I'm okay with that.
This strikes me as being much briefer and cleaner and
To the
workable
point.
than
Yeah.
what we had before,
I don't know how
with all the
everybody else
appendices
feels,
attached
but
instead.
Works for me.
I know there's some folks here who may want to weigh in on this. Any questions or comments from the public regarding the committee handbook? Ms. Lichter?
Hi, Paula Lichter from the Heights. I gather just from the discussion here that there are still further drafts to be made, and you will not be voting tonight on this, because I'm afraid that the online posting policy of agendas and minutes was not, well, it's not online on the draft. It's not on the draft.
It's included in our packet as one of the appendices.
On the draft on the website, on your website, that says draft 127, it is not included.
Okay.
So I want to make sure that it gets included.
Yeah, because this says it was adopted September 26, 2011, the online posting policy.
Yes.
So we
that-
need
that's
to
my
make sure
point.
it's included on the website as well. Is that what-
As being a part of
well,
the appendix.
The draft that is dated 1/27/2014 has Appendix A of the open meeting law, Appendix B of the employee something, and there's no
Oh.
Appendix C for online posting policy.
Okay.
It's not there.
Oh,
So I want to make sure that this doesn't get voted on without the online posting policy as Appendix C.
Well,
Well,
and
I
this
point
action,
point out that it's here.
Yes.
Or
So
whatever
maybe we
appendix you-
just need to let Diane know that she needs to include it in the full. I mean, I emailed it back like this, so how it got left off, I'm not
because,
sure.
and we do have in here, actually, there's, in addition to the online posting policy, there's also our speakers policy
Yeah.
and our committee appointment policy.
Oh, so there,
Yeah.
So there
so
are,
all of those will
Yes.
be included?
Yes.
Okay, just checking. Thank you.
Thanks for all your interest, Paula, truly. You work so hard.
Peter Wasdorf, Precinct 1. Some of the questions have been answered by Paul. I had trouble finding the latest copy also online, as did other people. And you've also answered the question on the disappearance of Section H, which is the removal. That's being worked on, and we'll see a draft of that. That section was a section of particular concern to me. As you know from my correspondence to you and to the paper, I included in the latest email to you a section from the Provincetown Committee Handbook, which had a very detailed section, 2 pages, on a proper removal process. On top of that, in the past, I've given to the Selectman's Office and several of you individually copies of the municipal attorney's suggestions for how to hold a proper hearing, which applies to the removal of any town committee member. And many towns, including Provincetown, have pretty much adopted that word for word. My concern here mostly is that at this point, the committee handbook is very heavy, as it should be to new people coming in, on the responsibilities of committee members, but has nothing at all on the rights of committee members. And as you do a quick Google search and check handbooks, Massachusetts town committees, you'll find that many towns have included a section that includes the rights of committee members. And in particular, people thinking of applying for town committees, they're going to have concerns about liability. They've heard about lawsuits. Conservation gets sued all the time. The ZBA is being sued by this board. People are naturally going to wonder, am I liable? If I'm volunteering to do something on a town committee, am I liable? There are towns which deal with this issue, and I included a section from another town in my latest email to you that lays out quite specifically the town will have your back for volunteering. You're included, you're indemnified, our insurance policies cover you. I think it'd be great for committee members to know what their status is vis-a-vis any liability by offering to volunteer in the town committee. I've mentioned in my emails that the Supreme Court has ruled volunteers are treated differently than town employees in that they have full free speech rights. Town employees don't. But volunteer members of town committees do have full free speech rights. I can't imagine a town in the United States of America not emphasizing to its volunteer committee members that they enjoy full free speech rights. Guaranteed it goes along with the other warnings in the committee handbook on proper conduct, what constitutes proper conduct and misconduct and so forth. That people should be encouraged to know that at all times they're serving on town committees, they can speak freely, knowing that that is their right to do so. A little more difficult, because I've had no response whatsoever, is my particular concern that volunteer town committee members are not covered by the State Whistleblower Act. The State Whistleblower Act specifically applies to remunerated town employees, so volunteers are not included under any whistleblower protections. In some ways, if the town committee handbook and the town of Falmouth were to guarantee the full hearing rights that the Municipal Lawyers Association recommends, it may not be necessary to have a section dealing with whistleblowers. But why not? If someone calls something to the attention of some board or governing body outside the town that the town just made a mistake on, and if they're punished for that, there should be some protection for them. And I've said it a couple of times before. I know there's not much money, but I think this town is made up of volunteers who'd be eager to do such a thing, and that is an ombudsman or a board of ombudsmen would prevent so many problems that never need to get to the point of argumentation, never need to get to the point of lawsuits. They're respected people in this town who could step in, intervene, and make a recommendation that I think would take care of so many of the problems that come up and nip them in the bud before they become full-blown. Thank you for your attention.
Mr. Chairman, just as a comment about the not so much the rights of, but the liability.
Liabilities?
We designate every board committee member as a special municipal employee, and I believe that designation provides that protection of the individual, so that the liability then is really with the town and not with the employee. But we need to make that clear in the committee handbook, that you are a special municipal employee, and this is what it means for you in terms of any liability. That should be added.
Along those lines, and I'm not experienced with that designation at all, I think there's a paragraph in the current draft. In other town committee handbooks, I've seen pages on special employee, municipal employee designation. I'm not sure if one paragraph is enough to cover it. I'll leave that up to the board. But other towns do have pages just dealing with that topic.
Right,
It might be worth taking a look at.
right. Those are great comments,
Thank
Peter.
you for your consideration.
Yeah, it does
Oh, it does
mention that they will
ensure that all positions are, but it needs to be explained
appointed
what it
especially,
means.
yes, this is what is a special municipal employee. There's no discussion or definition of that. That's correct.
But I would think that we could probably approve this and then get these additions made, but I think we need to get something.
And I know that our plan was to try to then meet with the committee chairs, and I would like to do this exactly just saying, let's approve this. We can easily
Get
come
it
back in
started.
3 months, when we're
and
gonna have to
add
add
to
the
it.
removal thing, when we can add some of the things that Peter's talking about. I don't wanna add them on the fly right now,
Right.
but I would really like to get this approved,
So we
because
have
we've been trying to
something
do
to
it for, I know the board's,
That's what
before I
I
got here,
think,
been trying
too.
for 4 or 5 years to at least have it
Yeah,
done.
there's been a lot of talk and little action.
Yeah.
So we do have the changes to section F, but otherwise.
We can make those changes easily, and I can email it to Diane tomorrow sometime.
So do we want to approve it with the
Approve
changes?
it with those changes, and then begin to work on the other.
And ensure that the appendices
We will
are
ensure
included.
that the appendices are included,
Yes.
yes. So, do we have a motion?
I so moved.
Please come to the lectern.
Yes, it does.
Just a quick question, Mark Cool again. Does it go into effect upon approval, or is it
Yes.
conditional?
Upon approval.
No, it would be upon our
Date of
approval, and
effect.
there's nothing in here that isn't already in effect. What this essentially does is provide a single source of
Enumerates.
information for committee members. Obviously, there's some additional information that we want to make sure gets into this, but as noted, it's something that's been a long time coming, and we'd like to get the process moving. In fact, as Mr. Jones alluded to, we've been talking about having a workshop. In fact, we have mentioned it publicly, having a workshop this spring, bring in all the chairs of all the committees, and to get feedback on a variety of issues. And this would be one of them, that we would
Actually,
ask the committees to look at this and then bring us feedback
Miss-
after they've had time for
Ms.
that.
Boudreau solicited us, and all the, I don't know who on the zoning board did, but I did, so. But anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
I move that we,
And will someone make sure that it goes onto your website with all of everything?
The boss.
Okay.
with the changes in section F, I move approval of the committee handbook and making sure all the appendices, A through F, I believe is 6 different appendices included.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Unanimous. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Town manager evaluation, just a reminder, I'm still collecting those. I received another one this weekend, thank you. And we're just about ready to get this done. I'll be setting up a meeting with Mr. Suso, hopefully later this week, and Mr. Jones. The three of us will sit down, go over the reviews. We will be coming back to the board with a summary rating for the board to discuss, to publicly discuss, as well as potential goals for the coming year for the board to assign to Mr. Suso. So, and I have, you had asked about process and reviewing with Frank, and I have checked in with Frank and we will have any and all
In open
questions
session.
answered, yeah.
The one thing I don't think we have done that I think should be a part of the goals are to ask Mr. Suso's suggestions of goals.
Oh, yeah, well, that's a goal discussion, I think.
Self-evaluation,
It's
if
a-
you'd like to provide
a-
us with some suggestions, and,
For
all
goals.
Happy to do so, thank you.
Thank you.
right. Any other discussion on this topic? All right, and that brings us to the 2014 annual license renewal, which we have
Common
one,
victual
two.
Two.
I move approval of common victual license for Bakari's Diner and for Min's Kitchen.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the common victual license renewals. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposition? Unanimous.
I assume it does not need to be a new license, even if it has expired for this year, and these are now, are they renewals?
They may have come in by the deadline, but not gotten on our agenda in time, so
Good.
we'll
Let's say that.
We'll assume that the office staff has that under control. All right, any questions for Mr. Suso and his report?
No, but I would like to say, I would love to have us report on the MMA meeting this past weekend, because there's a lot of good things that came out of that, but it's too late, and maybe we could do it when we have a shorter agenda, maybe the next time we meet or something, because I have a lot of material, especially from the Mass Selectmen's Association, and they, believe it or not, they are finally working on the Selectmen's Handbook, and they have a draft of the first 3 chapters, so I think it would be really good to get those to the board so that they have them and review them. That was,
Yeah, I was in a particularly good section about reporting and providing information to the public in the form of a report, and that's, I have some samples too, which I think it's probably best discussed
yeah, it's
at
too
another
late.
time, because fascinating stuff, though. It was a good,
Yeah,
it was good.
really good. And the 23L, I gotta find stuff on 23L.
All right,
Motion to adjourn.
we have a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
I'm in favor.
We're in.
Hi, I'm Pat Thatcher.
And I'm Margaret Gifford, and we're from Sotheby's International Realty in Falmouth.
Margaret, I wanted to get away and do some skiing this winter.
And I wanted to get away to the Caribbean.
But guess what? The real estate market in Falmouth is so hot right now.
And the inventory's low, so it's great for sellers.
And mortgage rates are still good, so that's great for buyers. So guess what?
I don't think we should leave Falmouth.
We're going to stay right here.